Welcome to Retiring Well, where it's our job to help you enjoy financial security in any economy. I'm Michael Reese, your national show host, and now let's meet your local retirement planning specialists.
And in Birmingham, Alabama, this is Chartered Retirement Planning Counselor and your retirement planning specialist, Tad Hill.
This week, we have a great show lined up for you. We're talking about estate planning. And I know that doesn't seem to be very exciting, but boy, do I have a terrific story, and we have tons and tons of great information. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's show.
Retiring Well with Michael Reese, providing financial security in any economy. Today is the day you can take control of your financial future and eliminate worrying about your money forever. Retiring Well with Michael Reese, featuring Chartered Retirement Planning Counselor Tad Hill, founder of Freedom Financial Group in Birmingham.
So this week I told you we're going to talk about estate planning, which is a very, very boring, dry subject, right? I'm sure when you wake up in the morning and you lean over in your bed and you look at your spouse, I'm sure the first thing that pops in your head isn't, gee, let's get our estate planning done today, honey. I know you're not thinking that. I know that's not what happens in my bedroom in the morning. But anyway, it is important stuff. And I thought what I would do is share, rather than talk about the, how it works and all that kind of stuff, I'd rather share a story with you. And I've got a terrific story out of the New York Times of all places. And the title of the story is, "He Left a Fortune to No One." So here we go. When Roman Blum, B-L-U-M, I'm assuming it's pronounced Blum, he died last year at the age of 97. So this guy lived a long time. His body lingered in the Staten Island University Hospital morgue for 4 days. So this guy's 97, he dies, and his body's in the morgue for 4 days until a rabbi at the hospital was able to track down his lawyer. So Mr. Blum, a Holocaust survivor and a real estate developer, left behind no heirs, no surviving family members. His former wife died in 1992, which is about 20 years ago, and the couple had no children. His funeral was attended by a small number of mourners, primarily some friends, some other elderly Holocaust survivors, and some of the children of the survivors. Now, much of his life is shrouded in mystery. I just love this. He has such a great story. He always claimed he was from Warsaw, although many who knew him said he actually came from southeast Poland. Several people close to him said that before World War II, he had a wife and a child, but they died in the Holocaust. Let's see, even his birth date is in question. Here in the U.S., he was born September 16th, 1914. According to German records, he was born at a different time. But perhaps the greatest mystery surrounding this guy is why a successful developer who built hundreds of homes around Staten Island and died leaving an estate, now listen to this, he died leaving an estate of about $40 million, and he didn't even have a will. He didn't have a will, he didn't have a trust, he didn't even have beneficiary arrangements set up. This guy had $40 million at his death, no family, no wife, no kids, and he dies with nothing. No documents, no will, no nothing. It's like, why does he need a lawyer? I mean, apparently the lawyer didn't do it for him. And this is not a small deal, folks, because here's what happens. He dies with $40 million. First thing that happens is he's going to have to pay, his estate will have to pay estate taxes. So there's about $15 million of it going to the federal government. But who gets the other $25 million? Does his godson get the other $25 million? No. How about his friends? No. How about some worthy charities? Nope, not them either. You know who gets the rest of his estate, the other $25 million? The state of New York. That's who gets it. If you die without a will and you have no surviving relatives, the state gets your money. So here's this guy, makes it through the Holocaust, makes it over here in the U.S., builds up a monstrous fortune through his own efforts. And why did he build it up? To enjoy it? Apparently not. He built it up so he could just fork it over to the government. In other words, as most of us would agree, to waste it. Well, obviously, that's why you want to get your estate planning in order. Now, what I want to do is throw it over to your local retirement planning specialist, because I'm sure they have some stories for you of how estate planning has gone wrong.
And now, featuring Chartered Retirement Planning Counselor Tad Hill.
Well, Mike, you're right. Estate planning is not one of those things that we wake up in the morning wanting to think about. In fact, there are very few times during the day where we want to think about estate planning. It's an unpleasant topic. Who wants to think about not being here anymore? But if you love your family, you love your spouse, you love your children, you love your grandchildren, you owe it to them to take care of this topic, because if you don't, you are leaving them with a huge mess. And I can't tell you how often I see families that ordinarily get along, love each other, care about each other. You throw a bunch of money into the mix, and what happens? All of a sudden the claws come out. And unfortunately, this happens regularly, and it happens again in families where prior to that, everybody's had a good relationship. So as a father, I know that one of the things that upsets me the most is if I feel like my kids aren't getting along. And one of the things that my wife and I have spent a lot of time on is making sure that we as a family have harmony. Well, there was nothing that will cause disharmony faster than not taking care of this problem. Now, you may be sitting there going, done it, taken care of it. I've got a will, I've got powers of attorney, I've got a living will. I've even got a trust. If you've got a lot of wealth, you've probably put a trust in place. Here's what a trust is designed to do. It's designed to avoid estate taxes. So right now, estate taxes are at $5 million, the exclusion. So if you've got more than $5 million, you're exposed to estate taxation. But if you've got less, you're not. Now, if you've put a trust in place, it doubles that exclusion if you've got the right kind of trust. And that's typically what they're designed to do. So if you've got a trust, it probably doubles your estate tax exclusion. Here's what it doesn't do anything to fix: income taxes. So if you've got wealth, you've got a will, you've got powers of attorney, you've got a trust. Now, if you don't have those things, I can't encourage you enough to take care of that immediately. But if you do, you may be feeling as if you've got all the estate issues solved. If you've got large tax-deferred accounts, an IRA, 401k, 457, 403b, maybe you've got an annuity with a big death benefit, and that's the reason that you've got it. Those things are going to get taxed as income when they pass to your children. So depending on how things are structured, and normally they're not structured correctly, there's a lot of income tax that's going to hit your kids. There is a real opportunity while you're living to make sure that the money you've spent your life saving goes to your children, and even can be more advantaged than it is now. We can pass tax-free money to your children. We can build a fortress around that money. So if your kids get divorced or they get involved in a lawsuit, somebody runs into them at a stoplight or slips and falls on their doorstep, we can make sure that the money you pass to them is not exposed to that. Now, I'm not an estate planning attorney, but I do help people work through these things, and I have a lot of attorneys that I like and trust to help put these things in place. If you're watching today and you feel like maybe you don't have these things solved as well as you should, give the number on the screen a call. I'm willing to sit down and do my retirement roadmap review with you. We cover all 5 areas of retirement planning, and one of them is legacy planning. What are the things that we can do to protect the money when it passes to our kids and grandkids? I'm willing to set aside time on my calendar to sit down and help you understand these things. So give the number on the screen a call, and we'll do exactly that.
Thanks, Tad. You truly deliver every single week. And folks, if you're in the Birmingham area, you just heard Tad make a very special offer. He's offering to visit with you absolutely for free, no obligation, provided you meet certain criteria. If you meet that criteria, I got to tell you, if I were you, I would be calling the number on the screen. Tad is a fantastic retirement planning specialist. All right, I don't want you going anywhere. Coming up is our question of the week.
Let's talk about ways to protect your principal that have the potential to earn a decent return. Many of you want your money to be protected. That makes a lot of sense in today's unsettled economy. But it's difficult these days to find a place that pays you a reasonable amount of interest. It's frustrating. That's where we come in.
Ways to protect your principal with the potential to earn a decent return are available if you know where to look. We evaluate them every day.
It's one more reason that now more than ever, you need to talk to a retirement planning specialist. Why not call the number on your screen right now? We'd love to talk to you about protecting your retirement.
You've worked your entire life to become financially secure so you can enjoy a comfortable retirement. But when you get there, what's next? Wall Street and the financial media flood the airwaves with information about what you should and shouldn't do. But who are they working for? Who can you trust?
For the past 17 years, I've focused on helping people just like you protect and preserve their retirement security. And during that time, I've identified 7 different lies, each with the potential to destroy the security that you've worked so hard to build. I believe that you deserve to know the truth. And so I've built a website that hosts a series of videos that's free of charge that you can watch in the comfort and safety of your own home.
You don't want to miss out on these powerful videos that shine the light of truth on what can be a confusing topic. Why don't you go there now? It's absolutely free, and you'll be glad you did. www.retirementincomelines.com. You deserve to know the truth.
Welcome back. It's time for our question of the week. This week's question comes from Bill in Des Moines. And Bill writes in, this is a great question. He says, what is the difference between a mutual fund and an exchange-traded fund? Is one better than the other? That is a fantastic question, Bill. And Tad, I'm sure down there in Birmingham, you get questions like this all the time. Would you be willing to help Bill out?
You know, this is a good question, and it's one that I get a lot. ETF stands for Exchange Traded Fund. A mutual fund is a topic that most people are familiar with. An ETF is similar to a mutual fund in that it is a basket of securities. It might be stocks, it might be bonds, and it's designed to get us diversification. A couple of big differences. Mutual funds, when you trade a mutual fund, it trades at the end of the day. So whatever the closing price is at the end of the day. So during 2008, when the markets were crashing, people were trying to get out immediately. They had to wait until the end of the day and get whatever the price was. An ETF trades like an equity, so it trades immediately. The other difference is an ETF is normally a static basket of equities or bonds, and it's designed to track an index, whereas a mutual fund has a whole team of people inside of it that are trying to outperform the index. So if you've got a mutual fund, you've got people in there that are trying to outperform the stock market. An ETF is normally designed to just track whatever index it's designed to follow. So it might follow the S&P 500. It might follow a sector. It might be a healthcare ETF or an energy ETF. And the expense ratio is way lower. So one of the things that can really affect your returns over time is how much you're paying to have your money invested. Well, the average expense ratio in a mutual fund is way higher, significantly higher, multiples more than normally you have in an ETF. And so there's a big difference in cost. Now, if you're going to hold ETFs, you have to be careful that you're actively managing this. We actively manage our portfolios. We are on a daily and weekly basis making decisions about where we need to trim our exposure and add exposure. Maybe we need to raise cash. Our conservative income portfolio, guys, it was up in 2008. It was up in 01 and 02. And we've averaged a little over 5% after fees over the last dozen years. We're retirement planners. Our goal is to preserve your wealth. Once you've retired, you've got all the money you're ever going to have. So if you're curious to know about some of these strategies for yourself, give the number on the screen a call. I'm willing to sit down with you and talk about the differences of these things and how our actively managed portfolios have made a difference in our clients' lives.
This week in Chalk Talk, I want to talk a little bit about beneficiary arrangements and how you should be going about setting up your beneficiary arrangements. Now, in this discussion, I'm referring to money that you have in your retirement plans, like IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, and that type of thing, or with your life insurance policies. The same is true either way. So here we go. Let's say you're sitting there with an IRA that you have money in, right? So this is an IRA, and for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to say that your name is Joe. You are Joe Jones, right? There we go. And you are married to Jane. And so what will you typically do with your IRA? You name a beneficiary, or your 401k or your life insurance. You name a beneficiary, a primary beneficiary, and that's probably your wife, Jane. Now, maybe you're not married, maybe you're single and you've put another person as a primary beneficiary. Maybe you've put a couple people as a primary beneficiary. That's fine. Just hang with me, okay? So Joe and Jane, you're married, Joe's got an IRA, Jane's a beneficiary. The problem that happens is many people, and maybe you're one of them, stop right there. You can't stop right there. You got to name another line. You want to have what are called contingent beneficiaries, or a secondary beneficiary is a way to say it. So this might be your 3 children equally, right? And the idea is, hey, what if Jane dies before you do, Joe? Right? What if Jane dies first? Where's the money supposed to go? Well, we know you want it to go to your kids, but if you haven't listed them as a beneficiary, it goes through the estate process. It's a big mess. Make sure you're naming contingent beneficiaries. Then one more item. Most people would say the following. They'd say, well, if my 3 kids, let's say my 3 children, they have children. Well, if one of my 3 children die, I want their share to go to their kids, to that set of grandchildren. I don't want to disinherit those grandchildren. If that's what you want, then you want to use the phrase per stirpes. And that's a great phrase to ask your retirement planning specialist about. They're very familiar with that phrase. It means along the bloodlines. What it does is it makes sure you don't disinherit grandchildren if one of your children happen to die early. There you go. That's how you set up beneficiaries. This is Chalk Talk. Hi Birmingham, Mike Reese here, and I have to tell you, I think you're very fortunate because one of the nation's top retirement planning experts is right there in your neck of the woods. It's my good friend Tad Hill. Tad and I, we get together with top financial advisors, 4 or 5 times a year anyway, just to brainstorm, figure out how we can better help you. Tad, why don't you take a moment and share with the folks how you and Freedom Financial helps people with their retirement planning in Birmingham.
Well, Mike, as you know, we're chartered retirement planning counselors. So what we do is we sit down with you and help you put together a plan to secure your retirement so you have peace of mind and can accomplish all the goals that you want during your retirement years. And it's about understanding what questions to ask and putting that plan together. So for the folks that call the 800 number, I'm willing to set aside some time on my calendar to sit down and do exactly that. Review your situation and help you know what needs to happen to secure your retirement.
Folks, call that number now. Hi, Michael Reese here, and you know what I found is in that critical period, the 5 years before retirement, all the way to the 5 years after retirement, in that 10-year period, I find that over and over again, Americans are making mistakes with their financial planning that, quite frankly, are easily avoided. And it really almost breaks my heart because if you make little mistakes in this period of time, you can have huge consequences. So in order to help you not make those mistakes, I've put together a simple website with some free videos from me to you to help you be smart about your planning. The website is called 3mistakes.com. It's the number 3 spelled out, T-H-R-E-E, 3mistakes.com. Why don't you go there today?
Welcome back, Birmingham, and now it's time for our retirement rescue of the week. And since the topic this week is legacy planning, estate planning, I want to give you a story about Phil and Sue. Phil and Sue are a couple that came to us in the last year. And one of the things that we have to be very aware of when we talk about legacy planning, it's not just about leaving money to your children or grandchildren. It's also about what's going to happen to your spouse if you pass away first. We know that we're going to lose one of the Social Security payments. And if we've got pension income, we have to be very aware of the impact of one of you passing away. So in this case, Phil was going to lose about 75% of his pension income that went to Sue if he passed away. Or I should say Sue was going to lose 75% if Phil passed away. Now, in this particular case, their plan before they came to us was that Phil wasn't going to pass away first. That was the plan. And unfortunately, once they became clients, that plan didn't work out. Phil passed away first. But fortunately for Sue, we had identified this gap and had taken care of this on the front end. So even though this is devastating for her, we are going to be able to make sure that she's taken care of. We've got an income plan in place. There is a structure for how we are going to be able to make up the difference between the lost Social Security and the pension. So when we talk about legacy planning, it's important that we think about not just our kids and grandkids, but what happens to our spouse if something happens to us? And do we have a plan for how to replace the lost income? Because there's almost always going to be some. And in this case, one of the things that has given her a lot of peace of mind is knowing that she's working with retirement planners, and we haven't just picked some investments, we actually identified these issues beforehand. And so now, even though this thing that is devastating has happened and nobody expected it and nobody wants it to happen, we know we've got a plan. So she can rest easy at night knowing that we've taken care of her. Now, the other thing that's important here is how do we pass the money on to the children? So we've got a plan in place for that as well, because a lot of the money in this case is in IRAs. It's tax deferred. Well, what's the IRS going to do when that money gets passed to the kids? If it's not structured properly, it's going to get clobbered by income taxes. So again, we thought through all these things, put a legacy plan in place for the spouse and for the kids and the grandkids. So even though this is a very unfortunate situation, nobody wants to think about it, but the truth is the mortality rate for human beings is 100%. I'm going to die, you're going to die. We're all going to pass away. So for the plan to be, well, we're just not going to let that happen, that's not protecting the people that you love and care about the most. We need to sit down and think about this. And fortunately for Sue, we did this about 6 months ago. So even though this happened, we've got the right plan in place. We're going to be able to take care of her and her kids and grandkids. If you're concerned about this for yourself and you want to have a plan, not only for your legacy plan, but just your retirement in general, give the number on the screen a call. I'm willing to set aside time on my calendar and do our retirement roadmap review. We walk through the 5 areas of retirement planning and we answer these questions for you so that you know you've got a plan in place.
Boy, I just love hearing how qualified retirement planning specialists are making a positive difference in the lives of people all throughout the country. I get to hear it every week. And for you, your local retirement planning specialist just made a very special offer. They're willing to sit down with you absolutely free of charge, no obligation, provided you meet certain criteria. I know this, if I were you and I met that criteria, I would be calling the number on the screen right now. Sit down with these guys. They are extremely helpful. I promise you, you'll be glad you did. All right, time to turn the page a little bit and take a look at our IRA blow-up of the week. This week's IRA blow-up is the famous story, at least in the IRA world, of Kennedy versus the plan administrator. And this was a Supreme Court ruling. So here's the deal. Back in 2001, this guy, William Kennedy, died. He worked for DuPont for 30 years. He had his 401k at DuPont. And what happened was this. On his 401k plan, he named his wife, Liv, as the beneficiary. Now, here's what happened. Liv and he got married back in 1971, I guess it was. And when he got married to her, he just listed her name as beneficiary on his 401k plan. It happens all the time. But then they got divorced after about 23 years of marriage. So in 1994, they got divorced. And in the divorce papers, Liv gave up all rights to his 401k. And at that point, the 401k was supposed to go to his daughter, Carrie, when he died. But this guy, William, he never changed the paperwork. He never changed the beneficiary form. So he dies in 2001. And DuPont, where do they give the money? They look at the beneficiary form, it says Liv, so what do? They send the money to Liv, his ex-wife, who signed away all rights to the money back in the divorce papers. So Carrie, the daughter who was supposed to get this money, we're talking over $400,000 here. Carrie, who's supposed to get the money, she sues, and off we go through the court systems. And it took all the way to the Supreme Court to make this decision. 8 years later, the decision didn't come until 2009. So these guys are paying legal bills. They're paying their attorneys for 8 years over $400,000. And, daughter, mom, fighting, just crazy stuff, right? Anyway, the Supreme Court comes through, and here's what they say. They say, DuPont is right. They should have given the money to Liv. They did exactly the right thing. Why? They said because William had an easy way to fix this. All he had to do was change the beneficiary paperwork. He didn't do it, so your fault. The money goes where the beneficiary paperwork says it goes, which is to the wife, Liv. Now, what do we have here? $400,000 going to the wrong person, huge fighting, 8 years of legal battles, all the way to the Supreme Court, tearing up a family. I mean, what a mess. All because a guy didn't change a beneficiary form. Folks, whenever you get divorced, whenever somebody passes away, update those beneficiary forms. They're powerful, powerful tools. All right, folks, that's our IRA blow-up, and that's our show. We've had a terrific show this week. I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, I hope you have a terrific weekend.